everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the weekly Tottenham news review. I'm Leader Dorset Spur. I'm here to talk to you about all the different stories making the headlines over the last 7 days. Well, listen, after me uploading the episode last week where I talked about why I didn't think Ange Postecoglou should get the sack, and I felt that we should keep him and give him more time. Within a couple of hours of us releasing that video, of course, what did Tottenham do? They dismiss Ange Postecoglou. Now, I'm not gonna go on about all the different things, all the different reasons why I felt that's the wrong decision, because it's pointless. It's done. It's dusted. So, of course, we've now waited for almost a week, for the worst kept secret going, which is that we now have Thomas Frank as our new manager. So, I guess fan base are not kind of split on whether Thomas Frank is the right man. I think most people are torn by the fact of how this has kind of come about, and are obviously pointing out the pluses and the minuses of Thomas Frank being the manager and so on. From my point of view, listen, I'll support the manager. Thomas Frank is my manager. I'll support him all the while he is the manager. I suspect probably 18 months, but I'll support him regardless of that. My biggest concern will always remain the board and Daniel Levy, and what are they going to do now? We saw the reasons why Ange was dismissed, not being able to challenge on all fronts. Well, you've got to look in the mirror there, Daniel boy, because if you're looking for a rebuild in terms of moving on players that are over a certain age, bringing in players to reduce the overall age of the squad and to reduce the wage bill, then that's like a rebuild, right? It's a rebuild. You're moving players out and moving players in. You won't be able to do that over 1 or 2 windows. So you've got rid of lots and lots of experience and brought in lots and lots of youth. And of course, with that comes an element of risk, especially when you have the amount of injuries that we've had last season. So you're now in the situation whereby we've got a trophy. Fantastic, we've got a trophy. And we also have Champions League football. Now, I'm pretty sure Ange Postecoglou was saying we now need to build on that. We now need to bring in some players and some experience and all the rest of it, because this isn't the Europa League, this is the Champions League, and you need a strong squad to be able to compete in that and be able to compete in the Premier League and also the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, although I don't think you're too bothered about those, to be fair. But to compete in the Premier League and compete in the Champions League, you need some players, right? And so the question now remains is, what are you going to do, Daniel? Are you actually now going to spend money for Thomas Frank? Or are we just going to go for this continuous perpetual rebuild whereby Thomas Frank comes in and goes, okay, hold on, let's have a look at all the players. Let's make sure we're not jumping the gun on anybody. You know, do we want to keep Mana Solomon? Excuse my language. Do we want to keep this one or that one? Do we give chances to this one? Do we get Let's have a look at all the squad, and that's where you're kind of then stuck with. Well, where do you go from there? Because this squad is not good enough to compete in the Champions League and in the Premier League. I'm sorry, but they're not. And you need to spend some serious money. Now that's a lot of pressure on Thomas Frank. So he brings in his own training people. So there's been lots of people leaving. The women's team manager has moved on. All the coaching staff, bar a couple, have all moved on. And so, you're now looking at a case of bringing in a whole new set of people with a new philosophy and a new thought process and all the rest of it. Now, they may not want to change everything. They may want to just build on what we've got or what we've been doing. And so maybe it's not a total rebuild, but it's going to feel like that because you're starting again. Now, everyone keeps telling me that Thomas Frank is far more tactically aware, and he has the ability to change styles and look at how he plays against different opposition, but he's still forward thinking, he still likes to score goals and so on, and he's good at developing players. And I think that's fantastic, and probably something that we really need. Coming on a 3-year contract, will he see out those 3 years? Or if he comes in and gets off to a poor start, are the fans going to be on his back straight away? Is he going to be under pressure? What does Daniel Levy do then? Because essentially you're then in the same situation as you was with Ange Postecoglou. So unless you really, really trust this guy, and you must know why you trust him more than you trusted Ange Postecoglou, then are we going to stick with that and push on and keep and hold our nerve again for, you know, another couple of seasons? Because for me, I think, you know, this, you know, a rebuild needs 3, 4, 5 seasons, you know, to be able to really get your performances in and to get your stability in. We all know what we need, you know. We need a good goalkeeper. We need a number 6. We need some more defensive players. You need someone to back up Udogie. You need someone to back up Porro. You know, you need someone who's going to be your creative player if Maddison's not playing. You know, is Sonny staying? Is he going? Do you need to replace him? Is Tell staying? Is Tell going? Will we need to? There's just so many questions to ask. But whilst we know what we think the club needs, this is all open to interpretation now. So the question will be, and here's my thing with Thomas Frank. I am sure he is a good coach, and I am sure that he will put in, you know, 100% to try to be successful. But it almost doesn't matter, because you've got to look at the history of the club, right? Take this for instance. If you're a player and you're being invited to come and play for Tottenham, what does it tell you when the manager who's just brought you success has been moved on, and you're now got a manager who is perceived as a safe pair of hands, someone who can develop players and all that kind of stuff? It's not a stellar appointment. It feels like it's about stabilising the boat, getting better results in the Premier League and so on. It's not about glory. It's not about winning for me. And that, if it's saying that to me, is it saying the same thing to players out there, that actually success isn't important to Tottenham? What's important is balancing the books and being sort of, you know, top 4 or whatever, and that's good, you know. That just keeps the wheels turning, keeps the grease moving, and so on. So I'm just concerned that if the club are not prepared to move forward and give the manager, whoever the manager is, the tools to do the job, we're going to be in this constant perpetual rebuild phase. And I just think, you know, this summer will probably tell us all we need to know. It'll probably tell us what the plan is for this club and what we're going to get. So for those people that went out to Bilbao and have those memories and so on, and have seen that glory, that's fantastic, right? You've got that. You'll always have that. But at the same time as that, you've then got to question, is that where the club want to go? Do they want glory? Do they want glory every season? And I know you can't guarantee it every season, but at the end of the day, you've got to be seen to be moving in those circles. So I'm just frustrated, I guess, with it all. Like I say, this isn't about Thomas Frank. I haven't got a problem with Thomas Frank. I think, you know, he's probably a good coach. He probably is you know, more tactically aware or more flexible than maybe Ange is or whatever. But I still wanted to see where season 3 was going to go. Was Ange going to then turn up and show his flexibility, his adaptability? I don't know. We'll never know that. So hopefully, Thomas Frank will be able to do that. And I, you know, for one, wish him well. But I just feel for him, because if he comes on board and 10 games in, he's having a terrible time, what happens then? You know, where do we go from there? Do the fans get on his back? Will they give him time and all the rest of it? Will the club give him time? And it just feels like we haven't got a plan. It's taken a week to actually get the manager in, and I don't think it was a manager. I think it was more about the backroom stuff and all the rest of it. And they've had to pay a lot of money to get him as well, which is crazy, right? But you know, you've waited all this time, and all the while other clubs are going out and doing their business and making moves. Now, I may well be shocked. I may well be shocked, and Tottenham may go out and do lots and lots of business, bring in lots of really good quality players and so on, and maybe we get off to a really good start. Maybe this is the next stage of the rebuild. You know, maybe Ange was in for so long, get us a trophy, get us in the Champions League, whatever it was, but now it's time to just resettle, rechange, you know, focus a little bit and build from there. But I don't know. I mean, what are your expectations for next season? You know, what do you think is going to happen, and B, what do you want to happen, and what's realistic? So, you know, from my point of view, what I think is going to happen, I think we'll probably end up mid-table, get a couple of decent runs. Now, I really can't see the club spending lots and lots of money. So I'm not really expecting too much from next season. Maybe mid-table, somewhere like that. That's what I'm expecting. What do I want? I want us to build on what we've done. I want us to buy some quality players, you know, and really boost that squad up. I want us to develop some of the younger players that have come in and make sure that they don't get forgotten for the work that they've done. You know, your Bergvals and your Greys and your Sars and, you know, all those kind of players, your Oda Bears or Tell or whoever it might be. I don't want them to be forgotten, because I think they did put a lot into it. But at the same time as that, what I don't want to see is them not given anything. But I want to see quality players come in. And what I'd like to see is us really have a good go at winning a trophy. I'd like to see us win the FA Cup for sure. You know, I'm still wearing my 91 FA Cup shirt as a bit of a celebration, but I'd love to see us win the FA Cup again, because it's been far too long since the last time. What's realistic? I guess what's realistic is getting a decent run in one of the cups and really pushing on. Maybe it's realistic to say, well, okay, the Carabao Cup is a realistic target, one that you could win, that gives you European football. And then maybe after that, you know, a decent run into the Europe and getting maybe back into the Europa League. I don't think we'll get very far in the Champions League, and I don't think we'll get top 4. So I don't think that's realistic. So try to be realistic about it. But yeah, so it's just really confusing and frustrating and difficult to kind of really know where we go. It doesn't, for me, like I say, summing up, doesn't really matter who the coach is, who the manager is. They'll bring their ideas, they'll bring their coaching staff, they'll bring their philosophy. But will the board match their philosophy? Will the board build on the success of last season in terms of winning Europa League, or not? And that's the big question. And I did see, you know, kind of moving on a little bit, I did see some comments about Ben Davies getting a new contract. And someone put something along the lines like, Ben Davies signing on for another year tells you all you need to know about Tottenham's ambition. Initially I agreed with it. I thought, yeah, it's probably about right. But actually, when you think about it, well, you know, is that really the case, or are are they triggering that extension so that they can get a fee for him? Because there was obviously a lot of talk about him going to Wrexham, which I think would be brilliant. I'd like to see that actually. I'd like to see him go somewhere like that and do something decent like that. And I think he's been a model professional for us, and I'd love to see him in a coaching role in the future and stuff. But you know, is he going to be an outstanding player? Is he the future? He isn't, and that's why I think it's, you know, tells you everything you need to know if he's going to be one of the back four that you're relying on when Van der Ven's out, for instance. You know, that's not what we need, in my view. So, you know, a little bit unfair on Ben Davies, but fair play for him getting another contract, and maybe that is about just making some money. Time will tell. But of course, the other big news about transfer stuff is what's kind of going on about Heung-min Son, because obviously with Sonny there was talk about him going to Saudi and all the rest of it, and I guess one of the things that's kind of happened this week is he was interviewed and he said something along the lines of, you know, you just got to wait and see what happens and see how it pans out and so on. And I thought, that's interesting. That may mean that he is, you know, thinking about his future and maybe doing something different. And I, for one, wouldn't have an issue with it. I think, you know, now's probably the best time for him to go, because I wouldn't want him to be hated or criticised or, you know, downgraded for another season because he's not up to it. If that is the case, I mean, like he said, he's in good shape and he feels like he can really do a job. So if that's the case, then great, you know, carry on, Sonny. But if your legs are going and you're not quite up to it, bit part is where you're going to end up, in my view. And is that how you want to go out of the game? You know, maybe going back to Germany might be an option. I don't know. Even linking up with Harry Kane, you know, in Bayern or something like that. Maybe that's a good sort of farewell story for him. You know, bowing out or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I for one, I don't want Son to go, but I want Son to be the player that he really, really was, and with the contribution that he really can provide. If he can't do that, then I don't want him to be ridiculed or downgraded. I want him to go out on a high, and winning a trophy and being the trophy lifting captain is pretty much a high. He can't really top it, like I say, unless there's investment from the board and we look like we're going to really push on and try and continue to win a trophy in another season or whatever. Or are we going to sit and have another rebuild and then carry on waiting another 10, 15 years before another trophy comes along, which I'm hoping is not the case. So yeah, really, really up to Sonny really was what he really wants to do, and I think as long as he's making the decision, then I'm kind of happy with it. Whatever his decision is, if he decides he wants to go, then I'll hold my hands up and say fair play to you. And he may want to go now because the club would get a fee. And maybe that's a final show of loyalty from the player, and fair play to him if that's the case. What else do I want to talk about? I did just want to say happy birthday to to Mr. Pat Jennings, 80 years old. What a legend of the club! A player that played for both Arsenal and Tottenham, and is still considered a legend at Tottenham for sure. So. Happy birthday to Big Pat Jennings. 80th birthday is quite a feat. Anyway, listen, I've rambled on. The big news, of course, still sticks around the manager and what the manager's going to do. There are other stories kind of going on. Of course, you know, loads of all the players coming out and thanking Ange and showing the love to him, I think, which is really great to see. A bit of controversy around Romero's comment. People picking that out and saying he's criticising the club and so on. Personally, I just think it's just the way it's written. I think he's suggesting that there'll always be hurdles and challenges to get over, whatever that looks like, and kind of just emphasising the point that Ange did what he did, given the challenges that he had to go through. So I think people are reading too much into it. I think he's just showing his love, and I think, you know, it's great to see it from so many of the other players as well. You know, the one from Bissouma where he kind of put on the text messages how much it kind of meant to him. Matters, I felt, was really heartfelt. Son, again, another one. Like, you know, there was some actually really thoughtful and nice messages for him. He was clearly well thought of by the group, and that's not something that you can just make up. If you're a good manager, it's not something you can teach people. Some people are good with managing people, some people aren't, and it's not something you can teach. But it's really important in this day and age where, you know, you can't just stand there and shout at people now and give them a right old rollicking and expect them to run through walls for you. It don't work like that. You know, society is different, you know, and these are young men, you know, these are young men, some of them teenagers. So it's a totally different world, and you have to kind of work your way through it. And as a person of a very similar age to Ange, I would say it's quite a difficult one. I struggle with it from time to time, and, you know, even when you're talking about your favourite bands, and, you know, and people look at you like, what, who? And I'm like, really? You've never heard of, you know, The Specials, for instance? So I found it, you know, it's pretty amazing. But it happens because society's changed on so much. So yeah, good to see. I think it was good to see that there is some a level of love for the man, for what he achieved and so on. I think he'd always be in their heart. So be interesting to see where he goes next. And I know they're already talking about, you know, Premier League clubs that have approached him, and I think someone in Greece approached him and so on. So I don't think he'll be out of work for long, and I think he'll go on, and I think he'll win more trophies wherever he goes. Certainly, maybe not this year, but next, if you know what I mean. So we'll see where he goes from here. But anyway, listen, rambling on as always. Just all that's left to say is thanks very much for watching the video. Appreciate it. If you like it, please do give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. If you're not subscribed to Chris's channel, please do hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. But what you'll do is you'll get to see all the different videos from the different creators that come on. You know, Craig and Barnaby and Harry and Chris himself, putting out lots of detail, lots of information for you to lap up during this close season. And as I say, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Let us know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you on the next one. Up the Spurs.